Welcome to Your Career Story podcast, a show that's designed for rockstar professionals looking for that extra booster shot of confidence in their careers. Whether you're trying to get clarity on a job transition, want some work-life balance inspiration, or need a strategy to snag that promotion or raise, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Jenna Viviano, ex-Wall Streeter turned startup junkie who now coaches hundreds of clients, empowering them to take back control of the job search and land their dream job. So sit back, grab a glass of wine, and prepare yourself for your weekly boost of career confidence. Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Your Career Story podcast. I am so excited for season 2. We are talking all about work-life balance, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about what to do when you're on the verge of burnout. And I have a couple of experts here in all things burnout, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I have my friends here, Meredith Boggs, and I have Katie Connors-Norris here. And so we're going to be chatting all about burnout today. Ladies, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
You're
excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much. So let's kind of first just kick this off. I've been asking every single person this question for this season is, what does work-life balance mean to you, Meredith? Why don't you start?
To me, work-life balance enables me to show up at my job and love being there, and then it enables me to love having my days off. It's just a really sweet place that I go there and I want to be there, but then when I'm off, I'm glad to be off.
Yeah, totally. What about you, Katie?
I would say along the lines of what Meredith is saying is just like living in contentedness, both at work and at home. So not feeling the pressure that I'm thinking of work while I'm at home or vice versa, like wishing that I were at home when I was at work. So
yeah, I love that. I think for me, work-life balance has evolved a lot over the years. I think that as an early grad in college, my work-life balance looked very different. It was like non-existent. Like I didn't even think about it because you're like so focused on whenever you are a new graduate. And maybe you guys can explain a little bit about what you do. And I think that would help give context to the audience. But I feel like early on in my career, I was just not very good at work-life balance. And even also at the start of when I started my business full time, I was really terrible at it. And it's something I struggle with. So like for you guys, why don't you just tell the audience, like, what do you do so they have context to like kind of what your average day-to-day looks like?
Yeah, I'll start. So I am a nurse by trade. I work in the ER. And then when I was in college, I started blogging, but then really kind of ramped that up about 4 years ago. And so I tell people I have a double life. I work 3 days in the ER as a nurse. And then the other few days a week that I have off, I spend doing all the blogging things.
Yeah. So what do you write about?
I have a blog. It's called The Other Half. So it's real life that doesn't make the highlight reel. It's lifestyle, faith, a little bit about relationships, marriage.
Yeah. Her and her husband are the cutest people I've ever seen. They really are. But you need to check them out. We'll have her blog in the show notes.
But yeah, so I really feel like I have two jobs sometimes, and it's really fun. But I tell people also it's very normal, and it's very much the culture of healthcare that you don't just have one job because it's all shift work and it's long days. No one just works 3 days a week. They're going to go get a part-time job or a PRN job somewhere, and so it's very normal in the healthcare culture to have two jobs. So
which can feel really overwhelming. I feel like yes. Okay. What about you, Katie?
So I work at a book publishing house. But before that, I was a freelance writer when I first graduated college. Couldn't make ends meet. And so,
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you were a freelance writer.
I was a stringer for a paper. And so they would send me out on assignment. And I ended up working for a tech startup. Then decided I wanted to get into book publishing. Got an internship as a 24-year-old. And so I felt like, the oldest intern at the company.
Right.
And worked my butt off trying to prove myself, that I was here for a reason.
Yeah.
So that's how that came about. And I still freelance right on the side.
I actually did not know that you started out your career like that. So for context, Katie and I actually met originally because I stalked her on Instagram because I was moving to Nashville and you followed my friend Robin. I think that's what we decided that's how we got connected. And I have no idea still to this day of why I clicked on your name.
Yeah. Instagram algorithm.
It's true. It's like knew we needed to be friends. That's how, did I ever tell you that's how I met my one roommate was through Instagram?
No.
That's a different story for a different day. But But I met you on Instagram and I said, I'm moving to Nashville. I see that you used to live in New York.
Yeah.
Let's meet up for coffee. And I stalked you before I moved to Nashville.
Which was not weird to me in the least. I was like, oh yeah, let's go get coffee. This is great, new friends. And didn't we have some connections in New York? Or at least,
I think we ended up figuring out that we did. Yeah. The Christian circle in New York is very small. Right. So if you knew any Christian in New York, you're we know 5 of the same people. We probably went to the same party before. We're here, it's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
And then Meredith and I met through Katie. So that was, we go to sometimes every once in a while, a morning little writing session. Days. We haven't done it in a while. We probably need to get back to it. But so today we're talking, all about burnout. So each of you, it was kind of interesting. You both messaged me when I kind of wrote out online, hey, does anyone have any burnout stories? I have my own personal burnout story that I can share, but I'd love to hear other people's as well. And both of you said that you had yours. So I would love if you could share just a little bit about what is your burnout story? What was the point when you were I am on what does burnout look like actually for you physically? And how do you know you're about to enter into it? So I don't know which one of you wants to go first.
I'll start. Yeah.
Katie's starting.
All right. So this was when I was in New York and I had moved up there to do a program at NYU. I was working full time, saving up money to do this and then hopefully get a job in book publishing because I realized it's all about connections and I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
So
welcome to half of I feel every industry, which is so the case.
Which can be frustrating. But it's also a good learning experience. And so I did this program and I was working a full-time internship. And then I was working a full-time internship and then I was working as a nanny part-time and at a church.
You had 4 jobs.
I had multiple jobs, a little free time. I ended up getting a full-time position at this company, but I never fully left off the other jobs just because the cost of living is so high in New York.
Yeah.
And as much as I love book publishing, it's not necessarily the most lucrative career to go into, especially at entry level. Yeah. So I was doing that and living with 4 other wonderful girls, but they started doing some changes at the company that I was at. So working full time, multiple jobs, and I was just coming home and feeling really exhausted, but I didn't really know even how to express myself.
Sure.
I would come into work and someone would be laid off or just where they were restructuring the company.
It was stressful.
Yeah, it was stressful.
Plus, then you're living in New York City, which is equally stressful. Yeah. And then you're also trying to figure out how to navigate 4 roommates. And then so it's just all the personal and professional stuff.
Everything at once. And then we got a mouse in our apartment. If you don't know me, I hate mice. It was my worst nightmare, which sounds so silly, but it was a post-war building, which as clean as it was, there were still mice.
Oh yeah.
So I think that was the final straw, but I was started having night terrors and I had never had night terrors before. And I actually woke up one of my roommates screaming. And so they came in. So that's when I knew that something was off and I just didn't feel like I was fully satisfied in what I was doing. There was something that was missing.
So that's when you were I'm on the verge of burnout.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Yeah. So that was kind of your precipice is just okay, I have all these jobs. I have all this life stuff going on. You literally are having physical ramifications of what's happening to you. And so your night terrors and all that. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we're going to pause the story there. We're going to get back to it. Okay, Meredith, go. What is your burnout story?
So my burnout story, it kind of started, hindsight's 2020. So when I look back on it, it really kind of started back when I was about 2.5 years into nursing. And anyone that works in healthcare, really works kind of at the front lines, knows that it's really challenging to figure out a way to make it sustainable for a career. Career nursing is really not a thing anymore.
Which I didn't know that. What do you mean by that?
So what I mean is that, 2 years out of school, brand new nurses are already going back to graduate programs. They're becoming nurse practitioners. They're going back to PA school. They're going into education management.
Gotcha.
They're just not staying at the bedside anymore.
Okay.
And there's a lot of implications for that. And there's just a lot of things from a global perspective of healthcare that have just changed drastically in the last several years. But so I was about 2.5 years into nursing and was working as a bedside nurse in a pretty high acuity intensive care unit. And the hospital where I was at was kind of going through one of its normal ebbs and flows of being really understaffed. So there was lots of mandatory overtime. And that just really, I'm just not an overtime person anyway. I just never really, just always known that about myself. I do better when I work and then I have my time off. And so that was
Which is super healthy that you know that, because I don't think I ever knew that. It was go, 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 go. Please don't stop. Please don't stop.
So anyway, so that was kind of the background context. And then in 2015, my husband and he was also a nurse by trade. He's no longer practicing.
I didn't know that.
I know, isn't that so weird?
That is so fun.
So weird. But so at the time we moved overseas to China to work for a nonprofit for a year, where we provided medical and surgical care for orphan kids. And that was just a very extreme experience. The best and all the worst of ways. And we went, kind of the context is we lived at the hospital. We pretty much were on call 24/7, rounding in the morning and in the evening. And then if there was surgery days or any kind of procedures or anything, it was just it was long days. The kids were sick. Resources were very limited, just really massive workload, and not a whole lot of margin. And then even when we were technically off work, we didn't feel like we could venture too far in case we got called. And the fact that you're just living in a different country, that you can barely speak the language and get out to get your groceries. And so it just made for a really challenging way. It just made for a challenging time to balance work life and personal life. And really it kind of got to the point that it was, we kind of noticed it early on, and we said, it's coming sooner or later. We've got to figure out how to mitigate this, how to set some boundaries so that we don't get to this place that's really burnout. And unfortunately, I don't know. Looking back, I don't think that there's anything that we could have done that we didn't do. I don't think that we did anything wrong. It was just it just happened. The circumstances. Yeah. And you did the best that you could. And
how long were you guys doing that for?
We were there for almost a year.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's really intense for a long period of time.
Yeah. So at about the 9-month mark, it just got to the point that I am not an anxious person, but was having just extreme anxiety, could not hardly function to do my work. And Justin, my husband, anyone that knows him, his gift is hope, and he's this visionary, and I just love him to death. And he wakes up every day and he's like, oh yeah, we're going to do this. And it's not even he realizes how crazy it is. It's no, this is possible. Anything's possible. And he just got,
he sounds like my best friend. We're two peas in a pod.
And anyways, he just got really, really depressed to the point that he was not functioning, wouldn't get out of bed. And I was it was pretty extreme. And I was I don't know who this man is. I don't know what to do anymore. And so, and it was one of those strange dynamics, because then it increased my workload. And then it was when I felt like I didn't know what to do clinically, I didn't really have someone to go to and rely on. And so we ended up, we were coming home in the fall, at the end of the fall, for my sister's wedding, and we were going to take about a month off and then go back for the last month. And we said, you know what, when we go home, we need to stay. Because it was one of those that it was we can't continue to do this if we're in this place. So
burnout looked like a lot of physical fatigue for you guys, and just emotional wear and tear. Yeah,
and because when we came back, I almost didn't go back to nursing. I really seriously contemplated quitting then, because I just had lost. It was just really extreme circumstances, and I lost a lot of my confidence as a nurse and my clinical skill. And I just thought, I can't. I think I carried a lot of the weight of the outcomes that I had no control over, and so especially these fragile little kids, I just thought, I'm not equipped. I'm not skilled. I can't have other people's lives in my care. And so I almost left nursing altogether. But anyways, took some time and regrouped, and clearly back at it.
Yeah, no, I think that's what you said about the confidence factor. I think a lot of people maybe don't realize that. So I know for myself, whenever I hit multiple levels of almost burnout is what I call it. Cause I'm an Enneagram 3. So I achieve. I go. And then I go until I can't go any longer. And so I've learned to create rhythms now though in my life. I have basically full steam ahead until mid-March. I'm doing some work with LinkedIn, which is really exciting. They're flying me out there. I have these conferences. I have all this stuff I'm doing. But I have like a drop dead date. It's like mid-May, I'm like taking 2 weeks off. Like, off. Okay. My off is like,
I was going to say your off is probably like the average person's 7 out of 10.
I'm going to like work in the morning to do some writing. And then the afternoons I will be by the pool. Cause it's like summer here in Nashville. Yeah. So that feels like I get most of my work done before noon anyways. Like I feel like cognitively. And so it feels like it's like not like I will actually be off. So anyways, I digress. But I feel like the confidence factor was such an interesting part of, we talk about the physical parts of burnout, like you're exhausted all the time. You're having, depression or night terrors, which is like, that's crazy to me actually, that you had night terrors.
And to my roommates.
And to your roommates as well. We're like, what is going on? I know for me, when I was in investment banking, it was like I was working 80 to 100 hours a week. Yeah. It was nonstop, 7 days a week. Always had my BlackBerry on me. I had people come into town and I couldn't actually see them. My roommate never saw me. It was like everything was terrible. I was drinking a lot. I developed a really bad eating disorder. So like the physical, the emotional, like that whole thing. And I remember, like I've told this story before, but it's like laying on the bathroom floor at work and just being like, I have got to get out. Like this cannot go on any longer. I remember my face had like hormonally, like had broken out. Like it was so bad. I remember my parents were really worried about me. They would call my roommate and be like, is she okay? He's like, she is not okay. She's not okay. So how did you get yourself, like, how did you take a break from work, or how did you get out of burnout? You had mentioned, Meredith, that you were thinking, you had taken just like, you were reevaluating if nursing was even for you, which I think a lot of people do, because you were trying to see, like, is my confidence back up? And I know for me, the confidence factor was when I went from investment banking to the New York Stock Exchange. And I remember it took me like a year to get my confidence back in that I was good at something again. Yeah. It literally took me probably a year to feel comfortable in that role. And I was only there for 2 years. So what did you guys do to kind of heal the burnout or stop the burnout from happening, like when it did happen? So Katie, why don't you start, because we left off on your end of your story.
Yeah. So I had a good support system with friends at the time, and just talking with them, kind of reassessing what was important to me. I realized that I wanted to travel, and I wanted to be doing something that was tangible, and that I felt like I could see an immediate outcome of good, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I ended up having the opportunity to go to India and teach at a school there for a couple of months, and the timing was just perfect. So I did that. I put in my notice at work and was gone for 2 months, got to teach the things that I had been doing every day at work to these high schoolers that were trying to choose what career path they were going to go into.
Oh, that's so fun.
So it was like that the experience that I had those years prior was being used for good. So I really enjoyed that, and it just gave me perspective. It allowed me to see the importance of the work that I do and what I believe
Alexa
in.
just like talked to us. That was so weird. There's a fourth person in this party now. Just kidding. Sorry, keep going.
But it just allowed me to reassess and see, I do enjoy working with books, and I think it's important to love what you do and to be intentional about what you do. And so I ended up going back into book publishing. I didn't move back to New York. I had spent my time there. I moved to Nashville.
Yeah, which is how we all met.
Yeah.
So I feel like, so you basically took a break though. It was like a sabbatical.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think that that's necessary when you're like literally hit burnout? To take some sort, if it's financially possible for you?
If it's financially possible, I totally, yes. And it helped just going somewhere outside of New York, because I need to be in a new environment to kind of reassess and think through things. And so being in a different culture even allowed me to think differently than.
What was like going through your head whenever you left? Like when you made a decision to put in your notice? Because I think a lot of people who might be listening are like, I'm definitely on that verge right now. Like I'm on the verge of burnout. I maybe could make it financially work if I really thought about it, but I'm so nervous about disappointing people, disappointing like myself, stalling my career. Like what was going through your brain when you were going through that? Were you just like, Sharab, I have to get out? Because that was me. I was like, I have to get out of here.
Yeah. I would say what's most important to me kept going through my head. Like, what am I going to care most about when I am on my deathbed? Which sounds so cliche.
No, I don't think so at all.
But my dad passed away when I was younger, and for him, it was being very involved with his family, and he loved his job and like the people that he was working with. And I just reached that point in New York where I thought, I don't know that I'm going to have like a long-term impact, and that when I die, I'm going to look back and say this was worth it.
Wow. So, that's like really deep.
It was
to like come to the conclusion about
dark place.
Yeah, no, but I mean that. Like that is an honest answer to that question, because I feel like a lot of people, at least the people that I talk to a lot, don't maybe necessarily think about their careers in that very. You spend 90,000 hours of your lifetime there. You better like what you're doing, or feel like you have some sort of impact. And like, it's not okay to suffer through. I firmly believe it's not okay to suffer through it. Will there be hard months? Well, yes, of course. Will there be challenges? There should be. If there's not, you're not doing something right. You know. But I think to be on the point of where you're physically exhausted, mentally super drained, and to not respect your body or your time with the value that it deserves, because we don't know how long we have on this earth, right? And so if we really look at our careers from the perspective of, is this going to help further whatever our goals and mission and life is about, which I think people need to think about that, even just take a couple steps back to even think about that, because we're not programmed to do that. And we are fortunate, usually in the United States, to have that option for the most part, not always, but to have that option or have that perspective. So I love that you just kind of put it into perspective for yourself and said, this is not worth it for me.
Yeah.
Hi friends, Jenna here. Just wanted to pop in real quick to tell you about a special freebie we designed just with you in mind. If you're listening to this podcast, you've probably flirted with burnout before. If you're a high achiever, it's probably been a recurring theme in your career. But we don't want you to live like that. I personally don't want to live like that. So in the spirit of being reminded to slow down, soak it in, and operate from a posture of rest, we've created some really fun lock screens for your phone so that when you look down, you're constantly reminded to steer clear of the burnout. You can find them over on my Instagram page at Jenna_Beviano under the story highlight. Be sure to download them, share them with a friend, and spread the spirit of rest. Again, you can find them over on my Instagram page at Jenna_Beviano. That's Jenna with one N. And I would extra love it if we connected there. And I would love if you could send me your burnout story and how you got through. So pull up your Instagram app and find the lock screens at Jenna_Beviano. Okay, back to the episode.
How long were you in India for?
2 months. So it was enough time to where I started to miss what I did. Which
That's
I
good,
think
though.
is a good sign.
That is a good sign.
You're in what you're supposed to be in.
What did you miss about it?
I missed working with the books. Knowing that somebody was going to get this and they were going to read it and it could potentially change their lives. There's something about, like, if you are working with something that you believe in, it's worth the extra hours. But I also knew that I needed to find balance in that. So stepping away allowed me to realize that, I like this, but also I need to have some parameters around it before I go back to it.
So with your story, did you have an experience when you were younger that got you into books that you were like, a book changed my life?
Yes.
Okay, tell me about that. I actually want to know.
I am an Ella Montgomery, like Anna Green Gables.
Yes.
Nerd. So,
did you ever watch the movies?
Yes,
they're so good.
They're
so good.
The third movie. The third one that they came out with was terrible.
The new Netflix one?
Not the new Netflix one. I haven't watched that because I've been too nervous.
It's not so great.
Yeah, the first
yes.
Nina Avonlea.
Yes, they were so good.
So those just changed my perspective and gave me appreciation for like nature and words and enjoying like even the small moments of life. I love the way Ella Montgomery captured that. And so that's really when I started reading, and I knew that I wanted to do something with words in some way. So.
Yeah. And you write now too.
And I write too.
So that was kind of your story. So you took a true sabbatical, really took perspective of that and realized that, hey, I actually do like the thing that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Cool. Meredith, what was your experience like?
So when we moved back from China, I felt like it was kind of like a crash landing. It was like culture shock, and then it was wedding season for my sister. So it was showers and bachelorette parties and like tons of friends and family. And it was really fun because I felt like I'd been, 9 or 10 months of like pretty isolated and working a ton. And so, but it also left a lot of time. I'm kind of like you, that I'm like, yes, everything, all day, every day. Like,
it's so bad.
The schedule's packed. We've got room for 10 more things today.
She just launched a podcast and she was talking about that before we hopped on. She's like, I don't have time for this. But
here I am doing it anyways.
Yeah.
So anyways, it just having by the time I went back to work, it was about 5 or 6 weeks. And it just really, it felt like so much longer than that.
Yeah.
Just because I think it created a lot of space for rest and healing and just contemplation. And I really got to a place that the thought of going back to nursing gave me anxiety. And I was like, I can never step foot in a hospital again. I can never be someone's primary nurse. I will never do this, never do that. Like, just thinking about being in certain situations just really made me come undone. And I was like, no, this is not for me. Just like questioned a lot. Like, I wasn't ever meant to do this. And I think a lot of it too, you can go to a really dark place, and you kind of have to reorient yourself to the truth and to what's right and what's true and what's good and what is just unfortunate outcomes of being burnout, and just kind of the symptoms of that. And so, so I just got to a place. There's a quote by Frederick Buechner that's kind of like my professional like mantra.
I love that.
But he says, and I probably won't get it exactly right, but he says something to the effect of, the place God calls you to is a place where the world's deep hunger and your deep gladness meet. And so I just thought, like, I don't know. I just kind of looked at my work as a nurse through that lens of, does this work bring me deep gladness? Does it? Obviously it, meets a very real hunger in the world. And, but was I the person to meet that hunger and for that to be my deep gladness? And so, and I kind of realized, I was like, that was really the first time that I was like, I probably won't be in healthcare for my entire career. I don't know what I will do, but I don't know if it will be that, but it's not time. I'm not done. I'm going to go back. I just need to figure out how I'm going to go back and what that's going to look like. And people were so kind and well-intentioned, and they were like, oh, you should get a clinic job and just like give shots. And I'm like, I would rather die. It sounds so boring. So what I do instead, I went and got a job in the ER, which is another thing that I swore up and down I would never do, because my husband had worked in the ER previously, and I was just like, no, it is way out of control. It is so chaotic. I mean, these people are sick, and I loved high acuity, but I was like, no, I'll never work in the ER. And don't ever say never, because then,
God laughs.
4 years later, you're like working in the ER. It was, and it's been such a gift, and I feel like really redeeming in a way of that season of burnout. Because I love the ER so much, and I go to work every day, and I love it. And it's really freaking hard some days, and there's some days that I don't want to go back, but I really do feel like at my core that is the work and the place that I'm called to at this point in my life. Sure. I don't know that it'll be forever, but for now it is. And I just think of the richness that I would have missed out on if I had just walked away from it altogether in that season of burnout, feeling so clouded and depressed. Yeah.
Do you feel like you can separate like work and like life? Now, do you feel like when you leave work, you leave work?
Yes, I do feel like I leave work.
That's good.
I sometimes need
a second, like a wind down period. Give me some ice cream or some wine. That'll be good.
I sometimes need my drive home to do one of two things: to either be completely silent, like not on the phone, no music, nothing, or I call my husband because he gets it, and I'm so thankful for that. And I like tell him all the horrible things and all the terrible, just the stuff, and then it like when I get out of my car and I walk in my front door, it's like, okay. That's done until I clock back in next time. And I think you really have to do that. I don't think that's unique to healthcare. I think that's just a practice to make any line of work sustainable.
Do you think that having outside passions like you do, so, writing is one of them, and, your social media platform is awesome, and you now getting to do this with your husband, and like the whole thing, you guys are always vision casting for something, I feel like. And so do you feel like that also helps with the separation?
Oh, yes, 100%. It really does. Cause like, I'm going back, I've been off for 4 days, and I've spent them finishing up a book proposal and doing some podcast edits and, sending this out to my email list and that. And I get to go back to the ER tomorrow, and I'm actually really excited about that. Because if I have to edit one more thing, and if I have to go back and fix all my grammatical mistakes in my book proposal, I'm going to lose my mind. And so I'm just really excited to go into work tomorrow and like good tactile nursing, like blood and guts and IVs and traumas and all that.
This is like something I could never do in a million years. God bless you.
But I really feel like it gives me like really great deep appreciation for the other form of work. And it really helps bring a balance and a centering to that.
Yeah, I think that's so crucial. Now, so when you were off for your time period, right? you're talking about a little bit of some of the stuff you were thinking about during that time period. What were you doing? I think a lot of people I understand that. Even just saying that I'm going to take 2 weeks off. What am I going to do during that time period? Feels really overwhelming. So when you were resting, you obviously were processing through some stuff, but what were you actually physically doing?
I was, here's the other thing too. I like to sleep, but I don't really sleep for more than 7 or 8 hours a night. And sometimes I'm like, I'm going to not set my alarm and I'm up with the sun. I'm just ready to go. Yeah, I struggle with that too. I got a good night's sleep every night, but I spent a lot of it reading and writing and going on coffee dates and going to lunch and just enjoying life and just spending time with people. And I spent a lot of it writing. I would just go hole up at a coffee shop or in my parents' living room because they're kind of transitioning and figuring out are we going to buy a house or get an apartment or what. And so, that's really what those days looked like. And,
I love that because I think a lot of people almost at least for myself, and maybe it's just my personality, need a blueprint. How do you rest well? Give me a script for that, which is probably the wrong way, obviously, to look at it. But I think it's also coming, and Katie, maybe you can comment on this, but coming from New York City, where it is appreciated, glorified, and celebrated for being the person who is last in the room and first in, last in the office and first in the office. I mean, that was the number one thing I was told when I was in investment banking. And so it's almost like an unlearning now of you can separate, the world will not end. It will not shake the kingdom of God. Maybe for your job, Meredith, a little bit more. For what I did though, or what I even do now, it's not life or death. Right. And so I think it is a hard thing to unlearn that thing that we learned in New York City a lot of people who do listen to this are from those bigger cities where it is that is what the professional mecca is, work hard. And so maybe Katie, you can comment on what are some things that you mindset shifts maybe to even think about for people who maybe are in those positions right now. And obviously Meredith, you can comment too.
Yeah. I would say I did have a boss who later on in my career, she would leave every day at 5 o'clock because she had a family that she was getting home to.
In New York City, this happened?
Okay. Yeah. And that was such an example to me. And it's something that I look back to now because she set the example for the rest of us. Because I've not always had, where, hey, you know what? It's okay to leave. You have people outside of this that are more important. And there was a phrase that is funny to hearing Meredith talk about this in nursing. It's not life or death what we're dealing with. This can wait until tomorrow. And I think sometimes just stepping back and realizing that this email is not worth that extra 15 minutes that you're going to get, walking around the park to unwind. Yeah. So, little things. The little things. I think the boundaries idea is such an interesting concept. It shouldn't be so interesting, but I feel like it's becoming harder and harder now that we have our phones on us. And I've actually turned my email. I've taken my email off my phone for a large portion of the last year. That's so good.
And even it's on my email, on my phone now, but I don't have any notifications. So I have to actively go into the app to look it up because it was just driving me crazy. I would get clients that would lovingly email me late at night. And I felt this impetus to respond to it when actually, and I remember having the same conversation with people I worked with back in the New York Stock Exchange. They would send me an email late at night. And I'm like, do I have to respond to this? Is it necessary? And sometimes I get a call from them 20 minutes later, why didn't you respond? It's oh shoot, why didn't I respond? So it's kind of an unlearning. I don't know if you have any suggestions, Meredith, for people that are, struggling with the work-life balance or just getting a different perspective about how to create those boundaries and shut off.
Yeah. It's funny. You guys have said, it's not like your job where it actually is life stuff. Justin, when we've used both work and healthcare, we joked about this all the time, but the fact of the matter is that we would always say, nobody's going to die though. You can leave. And we said that with some irony, but what we meant is that you are not going to be the cause of anyone living or dying.
Sure.
And so that's why you have to put yourself first and you have to have boundaries. And so for me, that has just consistently looked like I just don't work a lot of overtime. It is very few and far between when I do because I just know that does not put me in a good headspace. And then the other thing is too, there's so many variables in healthcare and in jobs, that you get an email at the end of the day or some trauma comes rolling in at the end of shift and then you have to go level 1 to the OR. But the fact of the matter is that, you do the work that needs to be done, but you can also create a way so that you are not staying excessively late and returning emails when you should be at home with your family. And I think that that's much harder to do than the nurses that always stay late after shift, or the people that are always, staying late in the office to return an email, or on their commute home, or when they get in their driveway, they sit and return emails before they go in their house. Like, I just think that it's so much harder to not do that, because what you're saying is that I respect myself and my family and everyone else more than this. And that's not to minimize our profession and our work and how important it is, but kind of like what you were saying, Katie, just the perspective that your dad gave you, that it's like, our work is so important, but if that's all that our life is about, then I don't know. I feel like that we really miss out, and we're not going to get to the end of our life and be like, oh, dang it, I wish I'd returned a few more emails. Or like,
so
shoot, I wish that I had, done a few more things in the ER. Like, I've never once left and thought, oh, shoot, I wish I'd done that.
My dad actually said something to me a couple weeks ago. He said, there's a difference between someone who's wealthy and someone who's rich. Yes. Someone who tries and aims for richness, for rich, is usually somebody who's just trying to go after the buck, and that's what they care about. They're just focused on that, but their whole personal life, their family, their kids, everything is in shambles. He said, what you want to be is like the wealthy woman. Yeah, you want to be like the woman who focuses on building a wealth of relationships and building things for long-term success, not just for the quick thing that could change tomorrow, because that's a really unsturdy rock to be standing on. I'm sure he used some biblical verse in there, most likely. But I thought that was actually a lot of wisdom in that statement of there is a difference between wealth and rich and how you operate in your life. And so it does put in perspective, is this going to, my question always is this going to shake the kingdom of God?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No, I can wait for this for tomorrow. It will not be the end of the world, and it will get done. The task, what's the phrase? The task will expand to the time that you allow it to. So you will get it done. It will happen eventually. So let's just kind of wrap up our conversation. But when we're talking about, you guys have both gone through burnout experiences. I've gone through a burnout experience. What do you guys do now to mitigate that from happening again? What kind of self-care practices do you utilize or operate with to kind of help you, check yourself? I need to cool it a little bit.
Yeah, there's obviously seasons where work is going to be busier. So I usually get in earlier, and then I leave right on time every day. So I like to get in before I'm reactive, so that I can kind of control my day a little bit, or at least my morning. But for me, it's really getting home with enough daylight and the time to get outside. I have to be outside, so I'll go for a walk or a run or something like that. And I feel like that just sets me in the right mental space. Sure. And just spending time with family and friends, which it can do worlds for you. If you have someone that you can talk to, and just like you were saying, Meredith, you talk to your husband, if you've had a bad day on the phone, having outlets like that is huge for the times that you need them, and then focusing on the positive things at work then too. So if something goes really well, celebrating that, and just taking it in stride.
Yeah, I think the celebration of the good things people don't do enough. We focus so much on this person, I got passive promotion because of this person, and they were rude to me. And that email train, there's email politics. Yeah, I'm relearning the email politics. I'm working with this company right now. I'm I didn't see the right person. It's been a long time since I've done this.
So quickly.
It's why didn't you include me on this? I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I didn't hit reply all. So apologies. Yeah. So what about for you? What kind of self-care practices do you use, Meredith?
So I think all the normal things that you would think of, eat right, sleep enough, exercise. And I know for me, this is really funny and weird, but as a kid, I used to ask my mom every night before bed, I was like, what are we doing tomorrow? And
I feel I asked my mom that too.
And so anyways, when we first got married, I would always be like, Justin, what does your day look like tomorrow? And he would hate it because he would just get so stressed out thinking about the next day. And he was like, I don't know why you always ask me this. And I didn't ever realize why I did that either. But this is funny. After going to Onsite, which is how do I even say it?
Emotional.
It's like called on-site workshop. They have several workshops that,
emotional mental health.
Yeah. It's like week-long intensives with therapy. And I realized that there's this little kid in me that just needs to have something fun every day to look forward to. And so that's why I would always ask my mom, what are we doing? Because I just wanted to know what the fun thing was we were doing the next day. And so even like as a 28-year-old, I'm always thinking of what am I doing tomorrow? Because I want to know what the fun thing is. And I was really excited about tonight. So I was like, this is my fun thing for the day. But I need to have something fun to look forward to. And even if that's just as simple as like, I'm going to get home from work and take my dog to the park. I just need something to know, or whether it's dinner with friends or Justin and I are going to work on this project or something like that. I just need to know I need to have something fun in my day to look forward to.
Yeah, that's really good. I had a friend of mine, and he would always say that he would create these, like every 2 hours, he would like take a break and he would like anticipate it was more the anticipation of the thing that was really exciting for him.
Yeah.
I mean, he'd just like go get a nice cup of coffee or like, so it would just be something so simple. And he's like, it's just like the anticipation of the thing. It wasn't actually the thing itself of like, that was more enjoyable to him. And I was like, over my head, can't understand that. What are you talking about? But he was so sweet. And like, I think about that oftentimes when I like create breaks in my day. I think of him and his intention to create that space for just reflection and whatnot. But I know for me, my self-care, I need to listen to both of you guys because I feel like for me, it's very reactionary and I'm trying to do a better job of that because mine is more like, I'll get to a point where I've had enough in my day. And like, if I'm heading to Chewy's, I've had a bad day. Like it is, I'm never heading there when I've had a great day. So I like call my friend if I text her, I'm like, I'm heading to Chewy's. She like calls me immediately. She's like, what happened in your work? It's like a thing now. And I'll sit there with my journal. I'll have their delicious dip and I will have a margarita and I will just sit there and journal. But it is actually really fun. And sometimes I like, maybe I should make it not just like a bad associated with a bad experience because it kind of is fun. I know for me, the self-care portion that I really have enjoyed was like, I go to a yoga studio in Nashville that I just really have loved. And if you would have told me 3-4 years ago that I would be going to yoga for fun, like that would be a joke. I remember I went to a functional medicine doctor because I was burnt out in New York City. My hormones were all crazy. And I was like acne, like everything was terrible. And she goes, you need to stop the HIIT interval training that you were doing and you need to just do some yoga. And I went, no, I don't think so. I literally said this to her. I was like, I don't think so. You don't really accomplish anything when you go through yoga. Yes. Like don't have the language for Enneagram at the time. And which is so funny now because that company, I was like an early adopter of this company and they're now like all the Series A run. Anyways, she was like very impressive human. She just turned to me and she goes, precisely why you need it. They're like very New York, Brooklyn, like perfectly coiffed hair with her designer jeans. And she was just like, precisely why you need to chill out. So, but yeah, so that's honestly what it really looks like to me. And just having space in my day. I think I love days when I have early mornings that I can just have to myself. And I try not to feel guilty about taking those mornings because I know that when I do have those, I am like, conquering the world, queen of everything, and I don't hit the burnout as fast. And so I know for me, that's kind of some of the different things that I focus on. Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us. This was super fun. Actually, I learned so many information about you both.
This was so fun. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So if you guys, the listeners, want to get connected to each one of these folks, Katie, where can they reach out to you? Where can they find out like all the things that you're writing and doing and all the fun things?
Yeah. So I usually post on Instagram. My handle is @Kate, and I'm working on my new website. So that should be up shortly.
Okay. Awesome. Meredith?
Yep. And I hang out on Instagram too @Meredith W. Boggs. And you can also find me and my husband, the Other Half podcast, or my personal blog is meredithwboggs.com.
Awesome. Well, ladies, thank you so much. We'll have all their information in the show notes. And hopefully if you are on the verge of burnout, you actually know it now and actually have some tools to equip you to get out of it or just to take a break. And like the offering and the confidence that, hey, it's okay if you need to take a break. So until next time, thanks, folks.
Hey, y'all, thanks so much for listening to Your Career Story podcast. I would love to get to meet you. And there are a couple of ways that we can connect in between episodes. First and foremost, I love my LinkedIn. Second is via Instagram. And third is over on my website. I actually have a special spot just for you full of fun, free resources. So all you have to do is go to www.jennaviviano.com/resources. Super simple for a bunch of freebies that will help you boost your career. Hope to see you next week.